examples and procedural this very purport is. It breaks everything down, okay? So it starts by saying, love of God is natural in us. If you read Prabhupada purport in the Nectar of Instruction, maybe mantra, one of the mantras there, that mantra 2 of 3, he said, Krishna consciousness is natural with every living entity. He only needs association of hearing and chanting. So you have to align with something. That natural tendency will wake up. He's sleeping. Love of God is inside everybody. But it can be activated by proper association of hearing and chanting. So Prabhupada instructing that purport, we should facilitate, make available this process of chanting and hearing. That is how to help the living entity come out of this influence of lust. So you will hear that song. It said, the world needs love. When you say the world needs love, there is many dimensions of love, but we need love of God. So whatever we wake up love of God, go for it, because that will be for your own self-interest. Other than that, it will be selfish, your selfish interest. And your selfish interest will destroy you. But our real self-interest is to reconnect with God. And that's what religion is all about. Religion means to reconnect. That's what yoga also means, reconnect. If you don't do yoga and you don't do religion as is prescribed, then what will happen? You do material nature and you will be perpetually here. So you can see that breakdown. Loss is the greatest enemy of the living entity. And it is this loss only which induces the pure entity to remain entangled in the material world. And loss is born out of contact with the mode of passion. So you see, it's like a midpoint. You can either go up or you go down. If you go down, destruction. If you go up, elevation. So this is what we should always keep in our mind. We have to raise our consciousness. We have to improve the quality of our activities. Then only we are working towards self-actualization and self-realization and going back home, back to God. Otherwise, there's no gainsaying. It is just perpetually remaining here in this prison house. Next purport, Mother Ananga Manjari, on next paragraph. Actually, next paragraph.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual blaze, and the living entities are part and parcel of the spiritual blaze. They also have partial independency, but by misuse of their independency, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned soul to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their reposition.
Thank you very much. So you can see the thing to note, what is to be noted in this very purport is misuse of minute independence. If you go to the purport of chapter 15, text number 7, chapter 15, text number 7, Mama Evamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manasastriani Driani Prakriti Kasyate. It analytically explains our original nature. Mama Evamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manasastriani Driani Prakriti Kasyate. The living entities in this material world are my eternal fragmental parts, which confirms and corroborates what we have been reading, that the living entity is pure in its original state. Due to conditioned life, which is coming in contact with material nature, and here we are talking about coming in contact specifically with the mode of passion. They are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Hard struggle is born out of contact with material. Otherwise, we don't need to struggle. Everything is automated at the spiritual platform. Okay? So if you read inside the purport, towards the end of the first middle portion of the paragraph 1, it said, a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the living entities also have fragmental portion of his qualities. Okay, as fragmental part, we have his own fragmental portion of his quality. And one of those qualities of which one is independence. Independence is one. It's not only independence. Okay, so look at what Prabhupada said. Every living entity as an individual soul has his personal individuality and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul. Look at that. It's just like a mathematical equation. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul. By proper use of the independence, he is always liberated. Always liberated. Okay? So the question now is, how do we use our independence? So the Supreme Lord expands himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss. And the living entity are his part and parcel. They have also little independence. By misusing it, their service attitude is transformed into propensity for enjoyment, and they come under the sway of lust. They love Krishna eternally, but that love is transformed into lust, which is when unsatisfied turns into anger and then illusion and so on. So in that purport, he said it turns into wrath and other corollaries. That is grammatical presentation. Corollary means other associates. Anger is one, and then lust, anger, and illusion, another one. So if you go back to 262 and 63, where we have the 8 stages of fall down, 8 stages of fall down, you'll be able to connect it with this. The 8 stages of fall down, it mentions, if we cannot remember, in chapter 2, where it's mentioned that while contemplating the objects of the sense, 262 and 63, contemplation, attachment, lust. You see, lust comes there. Contemplation, attachment, lust, then anger, then delusion, then bewilderment of memory, then loss of intelligence, and then fall down. You see, 8 stages. So when he say wrath and its corollaries, associates starts from anger, delusion, bewilderment of memory, loss of intelligence, and ultimately fall down. Are you getting the sequence? Any comment? Spiritualizing lust and anger. That is the second thing to note in this very purport. Lust can be transformed into love for the Lord by desiring everything for Krishna. Anger can be employed in the service of the Lord by fighting against the miscreant. Therefore, lust and anger, when employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friend instead of our enemy. Those of you who did a nectar of instruction, example of Arjun and Hanuman were given. Hanuman applied anger in the service of Krishna, of Ram, by destroying Lanka and the miscreants in Lanka. And Arjun employed anger in the service of Krishna by destroying in the battlefield of Kurukshetra those who are miscreants that are against the order of Krishna. So this way, even the same lust and anger can be used in service of Krishna. He said a devotee does not complain about insults meted to him, but he does not tolerate any insult meted to devotees or to Krishna. He gets angry. But for himself, he tolerates. Okay? Are we learning something here? Hello?
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Prabhu.
yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Madananga Mohini, is it too fast?
No, Prabhu.
But
I'm
is it
following. Thank
informative?
you. Very
Is it
informative, Prabhu.
All
Yes,
right.
Prabhu.
So they are in position. So the next segment, Prabhu Govinda, you continue the next para.
Hare Krishna. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vinda Sutra. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Ahato Brahma Jignasa.
Atato Brahma Jignasa.
Jignasa.
Yes.
Jignasa. One should inquire into the Supreme, and the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmandi Asya Yato
Ambayat Itaratas Cha.
Cha. Okay. The origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of last is also in the Supreme. If
Haribo,
therefore,
Haribo. So is anything separate from God? All right, go ahead.
If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravana, but by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Hare Krishna.
So you get the whole gist. Whatever we have said until now agrees with this explanation, the purport, okay? So when we misuse independence, we become conditioned soul. When we use independence properly, we become eternally liberated. And lust does not die at any time. Even as devotees, there is anger, there is lust. But if we convert it into the pleasure of Krishna, it is in our interest, it's for our benefit. Okay? So that is what we learn. That is what to note from this text number 37. So text number 38, purports. Text number 38, Mother Gandhari. Mother Gandhari is still there?
Yes, Prabhu. Therefore,
Bhaktivedanta Chaitanya Prema Prabhu, we recognize your presence.
There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lost under different manifestations like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb about the embryo. When loss is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary where there is smoke, there is no covert manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The lust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the...
We lost you. We can't hear you. Is it network issue? Gandari is not there at all now. She's there. But maybe you unmute yourself. Unmute. You are muted. Unmute yourself. Okay. Gora Shakti Prabhu, can you hold brief? Continue. Gora Shakti Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Continue.
Okay, Hare Krishna Prabhu. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of loss that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, and the smoke-covered fire is compared to the human being. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if it makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form, kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire, fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So this is, I'm enjoying today, and I'm sure all of you are enjoying it because it's intense. It's information packed. So he makes example of smoke covering fire. And if you read the Shiksha Sakam 1, Chetodapanam Janam Baba Mahadava Minivapanam Siya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Badujivanam Anandam Buddhi Vadanam Pratipadam Punam Rita Swadanam Savat Masna Panam Param Vijayite Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So if you read in, you again attend to the later point, said it is in human form that Krishna consciousness can be revived, and by cultivation of Krishna consciousness and by the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. He said, this Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it cleanses the dust of the heart. It cleanses it. When that dust is cleansed, then we experience Ananda Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Puna Amrita. We taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. There's anxiety, there's anxiousness for tasting this nectar. But because of the covering, we don't. But if you see that, it's only in the human form that you can perceive. You have glimmer. There is hope in the human form. So in the human form, the hardcore lesson, we should not abuse the advantage of this human body because it can be disastrous. And if you look at the cases, there are examples. There's a case of human abuse. The sons of Kuvera, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, they were enjoying with themselves in a pond, and Narad Muni was passing by, drinking and womanizing, frolicking. They did not give a hue that Narad Muni was there, a saintly person. But the ladies, even though they were also with them, they made an attempt to cover their body. But the boys, they never gave a fig. They just, never mind. Narad Muni say, oh, you people who have very high bet, your father is the treasurer of the demigods, meaning you should behave better. And you are the one who are behaving wrongly. So take note, when in the human form, if we don't utilize it properly, following the right path, we'll be degraded. So Narad Muni caused them to take the body of the Ashoka trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. But he also blessed them. Whenever Krishna comes, he will be the one to save you. So it's not like fairy tales, once upon a time. This one is reality that took place and is what we are reading now. It can happen to anybody. And those who are too much enamored by sex life, Prabhupada's statement in their next slide, they will become pigeon. Is it not bird? Okay, pigeon. Pigeon is a bird that has sex more than any other creature, more than 24 times in a day, not in weeks. So 24 times. Every movement is sex for the pigeon. So if you compromise your human birth, that's what you are negotiating for. And also women who are too promiscuous, they want to give the bounty to anybody who passes by. Anybody who passes by, you can taste the fruits. They take the body of a tree. So when the fruit of the tree mature, any passerby can just pluck and lick. So we should be very careful what we do with our lives, especially in this human form. Prabhupada, in one of the purpose, whether it's in Ishopanishad, he said this human life is a life of responsibility, not irresponsibility. Human life is a life of responsibility. So we should not make useless use of it. We must make judicious use of it so that we don't experience these negative sides. Okay? So, and then fire covers the smoke, still burns to some degree. Similarly, a human being is covered by loss slightly and can conquer it by bhakti under the able guidance. The mirror covered by dust does not reflect image properly, so it is known as a mirror. Similarly, birds and beasts who are covered by loss moderately are covered by loss moderately. The fetus covered by embryo cannot even move. Similarly, the consciousness of the tree is covered by very deeply. So there's a graphic presentation, objects covered by compared to consciousness of, degree of loss and chance of overcoming. So fire is covered by smoke and is compared to the consciousness of Hanuman and human's consciousness. And then degree of loss is light. Actually, the degree of loss in human being is not as high as that of the pigeon. Okay? And so chance of overcoming is maximum. This is the chart. For mirror, the dust is covered by dust. The consciousness is compared to animal consciousness. Degree of loss is medium. The chance of overcoming also is medium. The embryo covered by the womb is compared to consciousness of trees, static, can't move. And degree of loss is very intense. You can see now in the graph, slight, medium, and intense, heavy. And the chance of overcoming is very minimal. That's why you find trees that live for 500 years, 5,000 years, 1,000 years. Okay? So, purport to text number 39. We can progress. Govinda Prabhu, you raise your hands.
It is said.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please. My questions are vibrating. So I want to ask before this one also vanishes.
Go ahead.
I had part questions, but as we are going, you keep answering some of them, and some also keep escaping my mind. Yes. Yes.
Which
So
one are you remembering now?
yes, in the previous chapter, we read that lust also come from the Supreme.
Yes, the previous text.
Oh, yes, in the previous purport. Yeah. So I would like you to elaborate on how the Lord exhibits his lust. How does he demonstrate it? And how we can try to imitate him on that level. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Your question is very nice and technical, but then from the things we have read, we can understand that we're already victims of lust. But God is not victim of lust. God is an enjoyer of lust. So there's in the dichotomy, there's difference. And two, we cannot imitate God. We can only follow in the steps of God or follow in the footsteps of great teachers. Okay. Now, in the Upanishad 1, it said, Isavasyam, idam sarvam. Everything, animate or inanimate, that is within the universe is owned and controlled. Look at the word, owned and controlled. So loss is controlled by God. Loss is not influencing God, but we are influenced by loss. Okay? So it goes further, I said, so everyone should know. You take only that which belongs to him, know your quota. You're like what we are breaking down now. Your loss is like smoke. You have hope. Okay? The animal, they have slim hope. The tree is hopeless, like the baby in the womb. So, but God is never hopeless. God does not fall into these categories. So that is the technical aspect of your question. Okay? If you want to ask how God exhibits loss, it is also a technical answer. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10 Canto, when Krishna danced with the damsels in the dead of night, okay, which is called the Rasa dance. In analyzing that purport, Prabhupada said that Krishna was only 8 years old. And for an 8-year-old boy, there's no question of lust. But the girls who danced with Krishna were all above 13. So it was the girls who had lust. Krishna did not have any lust. And Prabhupada further said in the purport, any boy under 10 years who is found with lusty traits has already been contaminated by bad association. Krishna does not have bad association. And Krishna is underage in his pastime. So there's no question of lust. So anybody who is thinking that Krishna Rasa Lila dance is an enactment of his lust is a lie. There's no lust in Krishna in that wise. But Krishna enacted that dance for the pleasure of the gopis. It was to satisfy their yearnings and their aspirations. So we cannot say, how does God, if we want to compare how God exhibits it, we may be bewildered. So it's better we concentrate on how we are affected and what is the therapy given to us and how can we overcome it. Overcoming it means directing it in Krishna's service. Overcoming it cleans ourselves with the chanting and hearing. Shravanam Kirtanam. Okay? God does not have to work on anything, but God has put it here. If you read in the purport, he says an opportunity given to the living to exhibit their chase for this sense gratification. But with God, it is perfect. Punamada, punamidam. It's perfect and complete. Okay? So I don't know if that gives insight into your question. We should not imitate and we should not compare. Okay, so progress in
yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I had wanted to your explanation raised another question of how we can it shows that lust is is always there. We the living entities have to use it to advance in our spiritual life, or use it in approaching the Lord. So that is
Yes.
already answered. So
Yeah. That
it's
is
very
what is
clarified.
called, you use it to navigate.
Yeah.
You know, like you are rowing a boat or you are riding a ship, rowing a ship. You navigate. You use a compass to navigate. So devotional service is the compass with which you can navigate. Okay? Devotional
Hare
service.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
I
Please,
can see it's raising more questions.
please, let us reserve the questions to the end, and then we will all enjoy it. Please, I want us to see that we have a flow and we are understanding. Take note of your questions. At the end, you have time to ask, so that even what I have in my head will not evaporate like the one of Prabhu Stephen evaporated. Hare Krishna. So Prabhu Apuva and Prabhu Gora Shakti, please tarry a while. Till the end, you ask your question, but don't forget. Okay, so pop to text number 39. Or go to text number 40. That's where we have something to note. Okay? Text 49 has already been exhausted in the previous explanation. Covered, eternally, nitya, vairini, and kama rupena. All these are already dealt with. Constant supply of fuel. So go to text number 40. Read pop 40. Who is reading next?
Ananga Moini Mataji was about to read when I interrupted. So
Okay, so she can continue with text number 40, not 39.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul. And therefore, Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places, so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses. And thus, when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositionaries of loss. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself as matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistake this as true happiness. The first identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 10, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:84-13.
Yasyatma bodhi kuna petri datuke swadi kalatra di suboma ijadi yati tabudi salile nakachit jane swabijne susa eva gokaram. Translation, you can continue.
A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with itself, who consider the byproduct of the body to be his kinsman, who consider the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So what to note here, the enemy lust has captured strategic positions in the body. So if you say you don't have loss, you can go for, what do you call it? X-ray. Go and X-ray yourself and know where the loss is sitting. Okay? Anybody who say he doesn't have loss, no, I'm not lost. You have to educate him. I should search. Okay? Lossy intelligence influences the soul to acquire false ego. Is there anybody who does not have false ego? In Gita that we read, chapter 3, 27, it said, what is that language? Prakriti kriya manani guna kamani sava saha ahankara vimudatma kataham iti manyate. The bewildered condition living and think himself the doer. It is out of false ego. Whereas activities are actually conducted by the modes of material nature. So once false ego is there, we think ourselves the doers. Okay? So false ego is a product of influence of the soul acquired by false ego and identity, and the paper is set with matter, and thus with the material mind and senses, he functions, he tries to enjoy. But there's nothing to enjoy here. Nothing to enjoy. There's also the purport or the analogy given compared to two birds on a tree. One is busy observing, the other one is in eating the fruit of the tree. That is enjoying. Okay? So we think we want to enjoy, want to lord it over material nature, but we become more and more entangled in our complexities. Okay, purport to text number 41, please. Purport to text number 41. Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
The Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the sense from the very beginning so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge of self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the supreme soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31. Jnanam paramam guyam me yad vijnana samanvitam sa ram tad agyam cha grana gaditam maya. The knowledge of the self and supreme self is very confidential and mysterious, but such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord himself. Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are part and parcel of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So from the very beginning of life, one has to learn this Krishna consciousness, and thereby one may become fully Krishna conscious and act accordingly. Lust is only the perverted reflection of love of God. Okay, I'll take that again. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God. which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So from any stage of life or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness. Devotional service of the Lord and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfection stage of life, of human life, the highest perfection stage of human life. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. This is actually what should be the beginning of Krishna conscious practice. But then Krishna consciousness is presented like a sugar coating quinine, bitter pill, but you add sugar on the cover so that it can be taken. So when people come, we don't start telling them, no, this is sex, no meat eating, no gambling. Don't start with that. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. How does it work? Already we're all bombarded with the whirlpool of material life. We're not happy. And the person can say, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. You know, it is method in teaching. We are using it to cover. But the real beginning of Krishna consciousness, what Krishna is telling Arjuna, by first regulating the senses. But if you want to preach to anybody and you tell him first regulate the senses, he will measure kilometers between you and him. Because the education we have gotten, if you read that Bhagavatam, 1122, Prabhupada said the educational pattern is only geared towards sense gratification. 1122. The educational system is only geared towards sense gratification, nothing else. So if people have been trained in sense gratification and you come to tell them something else, then, you know, you just create unnecessary empty for yourself. 1122, the purport. Okay? Prabhupada starts by saying in the purport, the age of Kali is very dangerous for human beings. So take note of that. Because if you don't know the degree of the situation you are in, you will not be able to see the need of the urgency to get out of it. You understand? The age of Kali is very dangerous for human beings. So Prabhupada is saying the whole system of education is geared towards sense gratification, middle down. Okay? Middle down. And if a learned man thinks it over, he sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to slaughterhouses of so-called education. That is what you refer to in the purport when you were reading Jnana. It's regular education. It does not tell you anything about self-realization. And all of us have gone through it. If you have gone through the wrongs of educational system, you have gone through this pollution. So if you really want to emancipate yourself, you need realized knowledge, not freelance knowledge. Realized knowledge. That's why Prabhupada said there, if a learned man, what does a learned man say in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 text 13 in the purport? 213 purport. It's called a Dhira. And who is a Dhira? In 213, if you can get there quick, 213, he said a Dhira, any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a Dhira. Are you getting it? Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul and nature, both material and spiritual, I call it Dira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the changes of the body. So in the Power Papa said, if a learned man thinks it over, you will see that the children are just intentionally sent to slaughterhouses of the so-called education. A learned man thinks it over. He sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouse of so-called education. So-called education is not education. So-called education. Learned men, therefore, must be cautious of this age. And if they at all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kara, they must follow in the footsteps of the sages of Nemi Saranya. Follow in the footsteps means start with the regulation of the sense. That's what Krishna started telling Arjuna. Yes, you ask a question, why do you act as if you are forced? Yes, it is lost only. So, Prabhupada saying, by first regulating the senses. So when you are given first initiation, you are asked regulative principles. And you have to practice spiritual life. There's Navavida Bhakti. 9 regulative activities, starting with Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Vandana, Dasyam, Sakya, Achanam, Vandana, Sakya, Dasyam, Atma Nivedana. 9. All regulative. So you're coming from Mangalati is not a fanfare, it's a regulation. Nobody likes to wake by 3 o'clock, even 4 o'clock. It's regulation. Everybody wants to eat boga. They say eat only prasad. It's regulation. In the nectar of instruction, Wacho Vegan, Manasa Kroda Vegan. Everybody wants to talk. Prabhupada says if you give them opportunity, they will talk whatever, or what they will say will be nonsense. But we admonish, talk only of Krishna. Are you understanding? So spiritual life is about regulation. So Prabhupada added in that purport of the nectar of instruction, he said, Krishna consciousness and sense gratification, they go ill well together, means not compatible. So if you want to do spiritual life, it's a major project. It's a major project. There's no middle point. So like Krishna said, swimming against the current is either you are swimming or you are sinking. There's no middle point. Either swim or sink. So spiritual life means regulate or sink into Maya. But then to preach it, we start with style. Chant Hare Krishna, hear about Krishna, take Krishna Prasad. You see, it is quoted. You know, associate with devotees, go to temple, do some service. But what we are telling them is first, regulate. First is regulate the senses by engaging them in Krishna conscious activity. Once you call this great symbol of sin, loss, in the very beginning, if you don't start from beginning till later, just like he said, many people say, oh, spiritual life is not now. When we become 70 years, we'll start spiritual life. Prahlad said, from the age of Kumara, from the very young age of 5, when you go to Gurukul, you start sense control. Because if you don't start now, when you are 70 years old, it is not going to be possible. There's an English adage that says, you cannot teach old cats new tricks. Old cats, they are teaching them new tricks. Not possible. Okay? So it is early in your Krishna con, you learn these things. All the fasting on Ekadi, fasting on Jamas. When you become old, your body cannot take it, like most of us now. We are having terminal ailments. We're under regulated drugs. We must eat at particular times. So even if you tell me fast on the 12, sometimes it may not work. Because I have to take surviving drugs. So all the fasting I've done before should make up for me. Otherwise, if it's now, Forget it, that you have become hopeless. So please do the investment now when you are young in devotional service. Invest now. Because later, in the Bible, it says, walk now, for a time cometh when no man can walk. Walk now. This is the time to regulate the senses. Not later. It will be too late. And they say it is too late to cry when the head is off. Your head has been cut off and you are crying. It's too late. Okay, so by first regulating the senses, the enemy loss can be conquered by conquering his shelter, where he's hiding. Okay, the senses, mind, and intelligence. You have to control your intelligence. You have to control the mind, and you have to control the senses. Engage the senses. Use the mind in creating Krishna consciousness. Bajahure mana Srinanda Nandana Abhaya Charanara Brindae. Okay, it's a worship Krishna who gives fearlessness. Okay, and the intelligence you use to engage in Krishna consciousness. So these are the true location of lust in the senses, in the mind, and the intelligence. So you can see in relationship with the mind in Bhagavad Gita chapter 439 and 1865, Krishna spoke, always engage your mind in thinking of. Is the therapy. Always engage your mind in thinking of me. Become a devotee. Offer your homage, worship me. It will make you be absorbed in me, him. If you use your mind in other things, you'll be absorbed in sense gratification and it will destroy you. He said, you will come to me. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Okay? So regulate the mind. Therefore, first, the senses should be conquered by regulation, by restriction of the senses. After some time, the mind will become free of lust. So regulate the senses, squeeze it. So when you are not able to stick to taking only Mahaprasada, you can see what is working on you. You want to eat boga. Okay? You have virus of lust. That's why you can now check the senses. At a point also, we think, oh, we are helpless. Not in this lifetime. Maybe next life. But look at what he said in the purport. At any stage where this consciousness is kindled, please start from there. There's nothing like it's too late, not in this lifetime. It is still possible. No harm in trial. And no venture, no success. You must venture. Okay? So, the connection, one should not try to conquer over the mind and intelligence first, because they are more powerful than the senses. Don't start the mind and intelligence. Start with the senses. Because you know how? The senses are the ones that bring information to the mind. And the mind consults intelligence for direction. You see that? It's like when somebody has a jaundice, okay? He does not like taking sugar candy. But the cure of jaundice is in taking sugar candy. So the cure of lust is in controlling the senses. The eye, the nose, the tongue, the ear, and the skin. These are the main knowledge acquiring senses. They bring information to the mind. And the mind, because it already has all data, it just connect them. And then it asks intelligence. So in this situation, what is best? Okay? So it says here, the link in this lesson, or the thing of most important, don't try to conquer over the mind and intelligence first. Because what Krishna said is, first regulating the senses. He didn't say first. What Krishna said in Gita, it's in chapter 4. Engage your mind. He didn't say regulate the mind. Engage your mind in thinking about me. And he repeated the same instruction in 1865. This is the only instruction in Bhagavad Gita that is repeated twice out of 700 texts. Mind engagement. Okay, so you see the progression. Don't start with the mind or intelligence, start with the senses. Okay, read purport to text number 42, please. Who is reading next? Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Okay, Mohini. No, is Mohini the one reading? Go ahead. Nanga Mohini, you are the one to read. Please go ahead.
The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes different connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily function, as described here, ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the function of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily action. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act as it does during dreaming. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence. And above the intelligence is the soul proper, If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and senses, will be automatically engaged. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of the sense gratification are superior to the senses, and the mind is superior to the sense object. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. This mental attitude has already been explained. Param Drax. Thank you, Pram. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of it being engaged in the lower propensity. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above, namely the sense object, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A no-fight spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the object of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong, like serpent, they will be no more effective than serpent with broken fangs. But even though the soul is a master of the intelligence and the mind and the senses also, still, unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to agitated mind. Hare Krishna.
Very good. You can see this is just a straight jacket. It's a continuation of the last purport, regulating the senses. And the next one is not telling you real application. So soul is higher than intelligence. Intelligence is higher than mind. And mind is higher than senses. And senses are higher than matter. But in the purport, it says that the objects of the senses are stronger than the senses. That's why it can pull the senses. Okay? So we have to, in the beginning, like you mentioned, regulate, restrict association. So if you look at the temple atmosphere, we talk about the 4 regulative principles. No illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, and no meat eating. Inside the temple, you are like being vaccinated or confined. What do you call it? Cordoned. You are cordoned. When there is an accident, they cordon the environment away from people being infested with it. Or during like the COVID time, the cordon environment, nobody can go in that side where the virus is heavy. The same way temple has been cordoned from this thing. Nobody sells tobacco in the temple. Nobody sells alcohol in the temple. Nobody promotes illicit sex in the temple. And nobody cooks and eat meat. So just by associating in temple environment, you are already encapsulated in safety. Although Maya is very strong, that certain people also, under the heavily influence, they make attempt to generate this insight, but it's limited, very limited, and it won't last. Okay? So by always thinking in terms of associating in Krishna conscious environment, that's why he said, Sadhu Sangha, Sava Sasra Hoy. Nava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sava Siddhi Hoy. The seed of perfection is planted in the association of devotees. So we should always keep the association of devotees. At the association of non-devotees, it is contagious, it is contaminating, and we become susceptible. Hare Krishna. So in all of this, we have covered these 3 chapters until now. Tomorrow we do an overview of the whole chapter. So the remaining time now, 5-10 minutes, Prabhu Gora Shakti and Prabhu Apuva, you raise your hands earlier, you ask questions, and if the other people have questions within the available time, we can still deal with it. Hare Krishna. Congratulations, every one of you, that you were able to go through this rudiment of 3 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Gora Shakti Prabhu, you can be able to ask your question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, we have not gone in, through the purport of 43, but I don't know whether it's intentionally. Okay.
It's intentional. It's intentional so that you can read that one on your own.
Yeah.
That's the homework for you.
Prabhuji. Okay. Now, my question, first, I would like to present my excuse for that question, because it's like it will be like going contrary to the faith. But the question is that if we think that okay, we confirm that Krishna is complete, but when we read also that there is a loss in Krishna, okay, do you think that
loss is coming from Krishna?
Yeah, okay.
Loss
Loss
is coming. Everything is coming from Krishna.
Okay. Okay. It appears as if there is loss in Krishna. That's what I said. Maybe it will be contrary to the faith, and I would like to present my excuse before asking that question.
Actually, in Krishna is love. You can see the chronology of presentation. When this love of Krishna comes in contact with the mode of passion, it transforms into lust. Are you getting it? And he gave the example, milk coming in contact with tamarind, it forms yogurt. Otherwise, milk is not yogurt. And you cannot return yogurt into milk. There's no process like that. The same way, love coming in contact with citric passion, like tamarind, will produce lust. But we are giving hope, contrary to the case of yogurt. You can still be able to reawaken that love by channeling lust into Krishna. which is love. Krishna is love. But whatever there is, aham savasya pavabo mata smriti pravatanam iti matu abajantemam Buddha Bada Samamvita. I'm the source of all spiritual and material nature. Everything emanates from me. That is where that statement comes. That loss is from Krishna, because everything comes from Krishna. There's nothing that exists independent of Krishna. Not that Krishna himself has lost. Okay? But everything, totality of what experience is, both in spiritual and material, comes from Krishna. I think that to be able to rest your question, so that we don't overflog it. There's no loss in Krishna. I explained it when I was explaining the Rasa Lila dance. Krishna is called Nava Yovanam Cha, eternally youthful.
Okay.
Eternally youthful. Yovana.
Okay.
So he cannot have lost. And but in him there's a lot of seeming contradictions. Krishna has 16,108 queens, and he had 10 children from each queen. And then the gopis want to cross over Yamuna, and they're afraid, how do we go? So Dhruva told them, when you get there, just recite the mantra, Krishna is the eternal brahmachari, eternal brahmachari. You will be allowed to cross. So, but it sounds contradictory. How can somebody who is associating with 16,108 queens be brahmachari? Is it not mind-boggling? But that is the nature of Krishna. Seeming contradiction, but it's a reality. So no loss in Krishna. Krishna may behave in such a way that we think is lost. It's not lost. Krishna
Thank
is
you.
only
Hare Krishna. Now it is clear. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Prabhupada, please unmute. Give me your dasha.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
I want to see those Gornitas there.
They are called Prabhu, sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, Prabhuji, thank you. My question had already been taken care of, but I want to just say a little thing concerning Krishna being losty and all that. You know, there was a lecture Prabhupada gave concerning that. I said if Krishna was lost, Krishna should be unlimitedly lost. There's no question of even delving into that matter. Unlimitedly lost. So we are not God, we are not Krishna. So we should not even go near that side. The question of Krishna being a child of less than 8 years or 5 years, I think he has no, the explanation is just to accommodate our little understanding, because even when Krishna is a day old, he is like 1,000,000 years old. So he can still have all these things even as a child, as a kid. But the issue is that there's no point delving into Krishna's private pastime, because we can never understand it. That's what Prabhupada was emphasizing. He married 16,000 women. What of hundreds and millions of women? Who marries them? All of us. So it's not like to compare this thing, bringing it down to know how it's lost. Lost. They say sometimes God is love. Then who is hate? Who is lost? If God is love, God can be lost too. So there's no question of looking at Krishna being lost and Krishna not being lost. We should just understand that everything is coming from Krishna. Krishna owns everything. He generates everything. Prabhupada is only trying to train us a little bit to understand that we graduate from trying to look at Krishna marrying, having lost, having this and that, just to accommodate our little brain. But actually, everything is coming from Krishna and is going back to Krishna. So that's what I think.
Thank you. That is a very candid contribution. Very, very candid. And I thank you for that. Yes. Govinda Prabhu. Stephen Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for these wonderful illustrations on the Bhagavad Gita. Like, we truly appreciate these insightful lectures. Now, my question is, in the previous purport, it is mentioned that the conditioned souls come in contact with the material existence to, exhibit our lustful propensities. So it is lust that actually brings us into this material world. And also, in the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about the desire tree, where the roots are upwards and its branches face downwards. So it's also mentioned there that it is our desire that we come here. So now my question is, what is the difference between lust and desire?
Beautiful.
And what does it cost the conditioned souls? Hare Krishna.
Good. Thank you very much. Very nice question, Robi. There is content, or when you say, how do we call it in administration? There's a how do you call it? 4 P's. There's a purpose. If there's a purpose, it goes through a process. Okay? Originally, we love Krishna. We are eternally servants of Krishna. Our relation based on love. But at some point, there comes the desire to enjoy independent of Krishna. Desire to enjoy independent of Krishna. That is not possible in the spiritual world. Okay? So the process will be flushed, like you flush your WC. When the content of WC is flushed, it goes where? Into the sockaway pit, isn't it? And when it's in the sockaway pit, it comes with so many other encounter with many things, isn't it? So original pure nature is lost, gone when we fall inside this material world. Now, the process of coming into this material world to exhibit that our desire, because you see that this material world is running under desire, icha or dwese, desire and hatred. That is what is keeping this material world ongoing. But the process of getting in here is you come in here and you come in contact with the mode of passion. That is the landing. You land on mode of passion. And that passion produces lusts. Unfulfilled lusts will generate wrath and other corollaries. Okay? So this is the process. But the original purpose is that we became cocky to desire to enjoy like Krishna or independent of Krishna. We cannot enjoy independent of Krishna. We can only enjoy in Krishna's company. So this is the difference that I can make out for you. The purpose and then the process. That's how you can differentiate them. Okay? Does that give a headway into your question?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu, it does. Like, I know this is a very deep question, so it's going to take some time to digest. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Somebody else has a question?
Hare Krishna,
The number
Prabhu.
of people in class have already reduced drastically. Yes, Ananga Mohini Mataji.
Prabhu, this last purpose we just finished reading, talking about the purpose talking about, Prabhu is talking about the sense object and the senses. Is there a difference between the sense object and the senses? And also the mind. We talk about the mind as it is during sleep. Does it mean that dream, as is it during dreaming, does it mean that dream does not exist and the dream coming is just maybe by the agitation of the mind before sleeping, or what?
Dream is a confirmation that the mind is not sleeping. It's a confirmation. Because what you see in dream, I use one analogy. Sometimes somebody is dreaming that lion is chasing him and he's shouting. But when he wakes up, there's no lion and there's nothing chasing him. Okay? That is part of the visible confirmation that the mind is always active, even when the senses are sleeping. Okay? But then you ask a question about the objects of the senses and the sense.
And the senses.
Even though the senses sleep and the mind is resting, there's one sense that never rests. One sense does not sleep. Who knows the sense?
The hearing.
Yes,
Yeah.
the ear. If somebody knock on the door when you are sleeping, you wake up.
Yes.
You can hear sound when you are sleeping. So ear is always alert, even when other senses are resting. The mind also does not rest because it's always active. Mind is always active. So that's why you have all kind of dreams and different kind of experiences. And most of those dreams, like Krishna put it, is assessing what are the data in the memory of the mind. Things you have done either in part of the day or years back or in some other life, they come back to you in dream from the data or memory of the mind. You have those experiences. Okay? Flying is synonymous with birds. So in your mind, your experience as a bird, in the life as a bird, comes to you again in the dream that even as a human being, you are flying, but you don't have wings. You understand? So in the mind, there's a lot of things stored there. So some manifest during sleep. Now in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text number 8 to 12, if I'm not mistaken, is it 8 to 12? No, chapter 6, chapter 8, text, chapter 13, text number 6 to 7. 6 to 7. Please listen as it is mentioned. The 5 elements, the 5 great elements. What are the 5 great elements? Air, water, fire, earth, and ether. These are the base for the whole of this material creation. Everything is founded on Bhumi, Apuna, Vayu. These are the base. The Krishna said they are all separated external energies of mind. So these 5 great elements, accompanied with false ego, the intelligence, the unmanifested 10 senses. What are the unmanifested 10 senses and the mind? Unmanifested 10 senses and the mind. You can't see them, but they are there. And what are the senses? The senses are grouped into two fives. First 5 is knowledge acquiring senses and working senses. Working senses. These are the 10 unmanifest senses, then the mind. Then there's the 5 sense objects. Are you getting it, Modananga Mohini? The 5 sense objects are different from the 10 senses. They are different. Without the senses, without the objects of the sense, the knowledge acquiring senses cannot report anything to the mind. Simple example, when you see a ripe mango tree, a mango fruit, oh my God, time is gone. When you say a ripe mango fruit, automatically it reports the sense of perception, the eye will report it to the mind. Without the mango, the eye cannot report anything to the mind. That's how it is. Then when the mind gives directive, the working senses will now go to pluck it. You pluck with your hand. You see the sequence. So there's the knowledge acquiring senses, there's the working senses, but they are separate from the objects of the senses. Okay? The 5 great elements, it goes further to say the five sense objects. We mentioned the 5 working senses: voice, leg, hand, anus, and genital. Okay? Then 5 working senses. If you read in the purport of that text, you will find this. It is clearly explained. So there's a difference between the objects of the senses, and the working senses. Ananga Mohini Mataji, this is the much time can allow us for now. You can do the private reading, Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, text number 6 and 7, translation and purport. You get all the answers. Okay? So I thank all of you for the time you spent with me. You are all big inspirations in my heart. I developed some kind of affection, and I feel cared for by all of you because you gave me some engagement, you made me study, you made me acquire more knowledge, and I'm happy that I share with you. And I pray that Providence would allow that our path will cross again. So let me just say this. Benjamin Ampa Prabhu, you have my WhatsApp number. You can text me or WhatsApp me what your question is, and I definitely will respond. We are time constrained now, so we have to move on. I just want to say thank you. 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. I will want to see you again. 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. May Lord Krishna guide our ways. 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Vanchakapata Rubhyascha, Kripasanubhyavacha, Patitanam Pavanam Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prema Prabhu, you have something to say if you are there.
Yeah, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the Nectarian section. You can see that there is a contagious flow of love and nectar at the same time. And this is very vigorous and very intense. Ganga Prasad Prabhu is from Chopati. Chopati devotees are known for their depth in this philosophical knowledge, in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and also in the practice also. They are well practiced. They know the philosophy, the practice very deep. So Chopati Temple is one of the best, and Ganga Prasad is one of the founders of Chopati Temple. You can imagine.
Okay.
So the nectar is very sweet. You see, nobody wants it to end. Those who are not here, they have technical difficulties with some of their phones are spoiled and they are struggling very hard. That's why many of them are not here. Otherwise, no one would like to exclude himself from Ganga Prasad's class because it is continuous flow of nectar. And as we said, we are looking forward to seeing him again. We'll be designing courses that he will be coming to facilitate.
Yes,
and
Professor.
also there are some standby units because some teachers may have some alternative engagement within those periods. And Ganga Prasad is a standby teacher also. Myself also, I'm a standby. So you can always get him again. But we said, don't go yet. Don't go yet. Because the way you are doing as if you are concluding it today, but tomorrow you promise that you are still coming on board. So we are still waiting for you tomorrow. Please.
Yeah, tomorrow we are doing a recap of all the chapters.
Yes. And that presence is needed to conclude it finally. So please, we are waiting for you tomorrow. Thank you very much. And also for information, henceforth, His Grace Ganga Prasad Prabhu is going to be marking all your essays and exams. So, I may come in some places, but he's going to be the one in charge of marking of all the essays for all the units and also marking of exams. So it's part of the examination board, myself and him. We are, coordinating the exam board, the Vedanta for Culture and Education. So it's not somebody you just meet one time and you are gone. No. We are going to see him again and again, but throughout the year. So, Hare Krishna. Drink the nectar now and see you later. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
We are really very grateful. Yes. Hare
I
Krishna.
thank all of you, Stephen Govinda Prabhu, Gora Shakti Prabhu, Benjamin Ampa, Ananga Manjari Prabhu, Mataji, and the Modagandari Prabhu, Jamasami, the two Jamasami, Ubobaku, and Jamasami Davidasi. You all made my session what it was, or what it is. Thank you very much.
Including Apuba also. Including Apuba.
Apuba is my eternal associate. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So see you tomorrow, huh? Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
La Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai. Okay, Jan.